Hello and welcome back to another video, and this is part two of the character creation video following the update of the 5e wiki. So we've got our character just where we left them off at the last video, and while we've got the first page open here, we may as well give the character a name. We can also give them a portrait here as well. So if I click on this black square at the top, now what you see here will very much depend on what items you have purchased or not. You may not see anything at all. It may be that your Dungeon Master will need to provide you with a portrait. But we can click on this one here and we'll just select that portrait there, and we've given our character a portrait. Now you see that it defaults also to the token. So when we select a portrait, it also gives the character a token. The Dungeon Master can replace this portrait with a token of their own simply by dragging from the assets tokens bag and dropping it in that corner there. So Bob is a cleric and we haven't given him any spells yet. But first of all, let's go to our abilities tab and then let's open up this one here talking about the life domain spells, and we're going to drag this over and just put it to the side for a moment. It tells us that these are additional spells that Bob gets because of his archetype, and these spells are always going to be available and don't count towards the number of spells that he can cast in any one day. So we're going to deal with these spells first, because for various reasons we want these to be in a different power group from the actual spells themselves. So if we close these little icons here to shut all this up, now you can see here that we've got already a power group called spells, and this is ready to drag and drop spells into here. But we don't want our domain spells in with the general spells. We want to keep them separate. So we're going to work on this first and sort this out first. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to create a power group in order to get these spells into the character sheet. So down at the bottom here, we're going to click on the star icon to add a power. This will create a new blank line. We're not really bothered about putting anything in the left-hand box there, but in the right-hand box, we're going to type in domain spells. And when we tab out of that, we see that it jumps down to the right order, and it makes the whatever you put in here will make this the heading for this power group. Once we've done that, we're now going to just drag in these two first and second or first level spells here, and it's important that you drag and drop them directly onto this header, otherwise they will just find themselves into the general spells power group, which we do not want. We want them in this group here. So we've got bless and we've got cure wounds. So we're just going to drag these two in and it automatically adds them to this group. Now you can see here, and we don't need this line anymore. We just needed that line just to create the power group. So we can come into our edit list here. If we click that once, we'll get these little red delete item markers. And if we select that twice, that'll get rid of that line. And whilst we're in the editing thing, you can see these little sort of icons here. This means that you can kind of drag and drop these and change their order if you wanted to, but we don't need to do that for this one. But if you've got several effects, you can drag and drop these to change the order. Anyway, let's stop editing this to get all of the little red marks gone. Now we created this spell group here, but we need to tell Fantasy Grounds some important information about this group. If we briefly have a look at the spells icon here, if we click on this little magnifying glass at the end of the spells icon, we can see that this actually has been set up automatically by Fantasy Grounds as a spell power group for a cleric. It's automatically changed the group type to spells. It's changed the ability in this box here to wisdom, which is the spellcasting ability of the the cleric, and it's also put a number into the spells prepared box here, which we'll come to later. These two lines here, base and save DC, are set to base, which means that these attack and save DCs will feed off whatever ability score is in here. So if we change the ability score in here, this also changes the attack and save DC. You can independently change the attack and save DC to have different abilities if you want, if necessary, but for a spellcaster that isn't necessary at all, and we should just actually leave the wisdom there. And no matter how many spell groups we then add to this character sheet, this will carry over, this wisdom part will carry over to all of the spell groups that we add. So once we get first and second and third level spells, they'll still all correctly use wisdom for the ability score. However, since this spell group here that we created wasn't created in the normal way, we created it ourselves, we need to actually plug in this information into Fantasy Grounds to tell it how to behave. We can see here, for example, that the heal for this Cure Wounds spell is 1d8, but if we have a look at the spell by clicking on this icon here, it tells us that the healing should be 1d8 plus your spellcasting ability modifier. So that's clearly missing from this effect here. So the way we can do this is to just click on this magnifying glass at the end of the domain spells. We're going to change first of all the group type to spells, and then we're going to click in this box here until it reads Wiz. And if we move that out of the way now, we can see that the heal is now giving us our extra +3 for our wisdom ability modifier. We can leave the attack and the save DC as base because, as we said earlier, these feed off whatever ability is in here. There's no need to have a different attack and saving throw DC ability. We don't need anything in the prepared for this group, and we can just close that off. So that's us. We've completed our domain spells level 1 spell group for this, and when we get to the appropriate levels, we can just drag and drop these spells and drop them into the same group, and they'll automatically actually create another group for like spells level 3, spells level 5, etc. So that will all be done automatically once you get to the appropriate level. So now that we've dealt with the domain spells, we can then look at the characters' actual spells that they cast normally. So if we go into the classes tab again, we can see that there is a button up at the top here called spell lists, and if we click that, it opens up lists of spells by the character class type. And we can see here that the cleric is here. We can also see the cleric life domain, so if we open that, it shows the same two spells as it did with the looking at it from the ability. So you can also add in the cleric life domain spells from here if you wanted to. So anyway, let's open up the cleric, and this will give us a spell list in order. So we've got all our cantrips, we've got our first level spells, we've got our second level spells, etc. So we can use this to populate our character sheet with spells. So our cleric gets 3 spells or 3 cantrips at first level. So let's drag in guidance, and we're not too concerned where you drop these as long as you drop them into the actions tab, they'll go to the right place. Let's go with Sacred Flame and with Spare the Dying. And as you populate this with spells, you can see that it's creating all the effects needed to run this spell. And we'll go over all of these buttons in another video, but all of these effects are being created for you when you drag these spells in. Now we can just close off these just now just to make it a little clearer. So now we've got first level spells. Now technically your cleric knows all of these first level spells, and you're perfectly entitled to just drag all of these in if you wanted to. I suggest you don't, because your character sheet will become huge. So maybe just drag in the spells that you think that you're going to use most. Um, and at any rate, let's drag in some. So we'll drag in bless here, and when we do, it's created a new spell group for level 1 spells. So all our level 1 spells are now separated out from our cantrips, and they're in a separate power group. Let's have cure wounds, I don't know, guiding bolt, let's say healing word, and I don't know, shield of faith. So we've dragged in all of the spells that we need. We could drag in more, but these are all the spells that we think that we are going to need, and they have all populated with all the relevant effects, etc. Okay, we've got spells in now, so let's look at one or two other little things that we can do in the Actions tab here. We saw earlier on in the previous video that the cleric here can cast or can use the Warhammer 1 or two-handed. If we change it to two-handed, because it's a versatile weapon, we get more damage. However, if we're using our Warhammer two-handed, then we can't obviously also be using a shield, and we've got a shield in our inventory. So there's a couple of ways that we can sort of sort this out, but the easiest way is to create an effect which reduces the target or reduces the cleric's armor class whilst they're using this Warhammer. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to create, well, actually we can just add it into this one here, cleric actions and effects, and let's just do that. So what we're going to do is we want another line here, so we're just going to click on add item, and this will create a new blank line. And what we'll do is we'll type in no shield. Let's try and spell it correctly. So that we know what this effect is going to be. And then we're going to right click here, and then we're going to go to add action, and then we're going to go to add effect, and this will create a new blank effect line for us. We'll click on the magnifying glass to open up the dialog, and we can now create our effect here. So we're going to call it no shield, so that when it's on the combat tracker, when it's applied to the character, they know why this is happening. We're going to end that with a semicolon, capital AC, end it with a colon, and then we're going to type in -2. And that means that the cleric's armor class is going to be reduced by -2 while this effect is in effect. We're not going to bother with the duration here. We're just going to leave that open because we don't know how long the cleric's going to be using their weapon two-handed. They might always use it two-handed, or they might use it occasionally two-handed. And then we're going to look at the targeting here, and currently this is set to targets, which would mean the target that the cleric is currently targeting. We don't want that because it has to sit on the cleric itself. So we're just going to click on that until it says self. And then we're going to leave the expend as it is. And we're going to finish that. And we now see that we have an effect in our library here in the Actions tab. And so when the cleric decides that they're going to use their Warhammer two-handed, then they would also apply this effect to themselves, and they will suffer the reduction in armor because they have put away their shield and they're using their Warhammer in two hands. Now, I don't want to get into the subject of effects too deeply in this video because it's a large subject and I've already got a series on it. But there's one other thing that I wanted to show you here, which you can do just to slightly automate this Disciple of Life feature. If we read the description, we see that when we cast a spell of first level or higher, we heal additional hit points equal to 2 plus the spell's level. And Fantasy Grounds has worked out that that's 3, and it's created this heal effect. So what we would do is we would cast our spell, which would heal the creature, and then we would also need to drag this onto the creature in order to give it another 3 points of healing. There is a way that we can sort of semi-automatically or semi-automate this. So let's get rid of this one. We're going to right click over this line, go to remove action and confirm that. And then we're going to right click again and we're going to add a new action. And this time we'll create a new effect. Click on the magnifying glass and we'll call this, let's say, discipline of life first level. We're going to end this with a semicolon and then we'll type in heal all in capitals, end it with a colon and then type in 3 and we're going to set this targeting to self again. We close that off and we now have an incorrectly spelled, but never mind, effect. Um, and what this will do is when we apply this to the ourselves or apply this to Bob when he's on the combat tracker, when they cast a first level spell, then they will heal an extra 3 points of damage automatically. Now, of course, if they're healing a second level spell, then it needs to be 4 points of extra healing. So we would need a new line here for second level spells, and you would need to remember which level you're casting so that you can put the correct effect on. And in fact, what we should do here is actually set this here to expend on next action. And we may as well just correct the spelling here as well since we're in here. Right, so as I say, the creating effects is out with the scope of this video. So do have a look at the videos that I did on creating effects, and you'll get more information and a lot more detail in those. So I think that's it. Yeah, I think that's it for this video. I think I'll do another video on showing you how to actually use the character sheet, but I'll need to sort of set that up a little bit differently so that I can demonstrate a few things. So thanks for watching this one, and we'll see you in the next one. Cheers for now.